Your traumas don't exist. They're just excuses you made up because you don't have the courage to change. So be brave, brave enough to follow your own path, brave enough to stop seeking validation from others, and focus on your own tasks, not other people's. That's the main idea behind the book, The Courage to be Disliked. And maybe that's exactly what you need to hear today. The book was written by two Japanese authors, Kishimi and Koga. It's basically a dialogue between a philosopher and a young man who is lost in his life, who doesn't really know what to do and how to live his life. And so he goes to the philosopher to be helped, basically. And the philosopher guides him throughout the book by introducing him to Adlerian psychology, which is a type of psychology that was created in the 20th century by Adler, an Austrian neurologist, who was seen a bit as the anti-Freud. Okay, so you know what? Let's just try to understand exactly how Adlerian psychology works. Let's take an example. Let's take the example of Greg, who is a young man who's been holed up in his room for 3 years. So if you want to follow Freud's doctrine, you're going to say things like Greg's situation is caused by his past, by his traumas. So you're going to say things like his father was too strict or his mother was too protective. But that's absolutely nonsense to Adler. Adler's take is that Greg chooses to stay inside and not to go out. That's his goal. And then he has created an excuse, his anxiety, his traumas, his past, to serve that goal. So the idea is that Greg chooses to stay inside because he wants attention from his parents, or is too afraid to face the outside world. So you see, according to Adler, behavior is not caused by past events, but by unconscious goals. Alright, so let's take a type of behavior to understand exactly how that works. Let's take anger, for example. So Adler says that you're not angry because something happened to you, but because you choose to be angry. I know that sounds completely crazy, but let's take an example to understand how that works. Tina brings home a bad grade. Her mom, Karen, blows up like she always does. According to Adler, the anger is not caused by Tina, but it's created by Karen to control Tina and to prevent her from bringing home bad grades again. And the proof is, while Karen's yelling at her daughter, her phone rings. So she picks up the phone and she realizes it's her boss. So as you can imagine, she will stop immediately with the angry voice and she will answer as softly as possible to her boss. So she will have the conversation, and then when she hangs up, she will go back to her angry mom mode with Tina, So that shift shows very well that she created anger to control her daughter. If you think Karen is just faking being angry at Tina, give this video a like. And if this kind of content speaks to you, hit the subscribe button. Let's take a look at another scenario. And I think a lot of you guys honestly will be able to relate, even though you don't necessarily want to admit it. So that's a scenario of Fred and Steve, who are both college students. And so Fred gets an amazing grade in math and proudly tells Steve about the grade. But Steve cannot feel happy for him. So the problem, according to Adler in this situation, is that Steve sees life as a competition. He sees his friendships as hierarchies, and he sees his friends as enemies. The problem with this type of behavior is that you're constantly on edge. You're always defensive, always protective. That makes meaningful relationships impossible. The solution for Adler is to step out of this competition mindset and to start seeing your friends and other people in general as comrades, not enemies. Now let's look at Brian. Brian is a young guy who thinks is boring and uninteresting. Because of that, he avoids socializing, because it just feels like he doesn't have anything to offer. But applying Adler's idea here, Brian has chosen to create an excuse, I don't like myself, so that he doesn't have to socialize. Because if he did socialize, he might not be liked and he might be rejected. And so that's a protection for him. That's a way of avoiding any socializing at all, just saying to himself, I don't like myself and I'm boring and uninteresting. This is something that Adler calls a life lie. A life lie is an illusion that you create to avoid change and to dodge responsibility. Exactly like what Brian does when he believes he's not likable, so that he doesn't have to socialize and make connections. In our lives, we use life lies all the time. For instance, when you tell yourself that you can't apply for a job because you don't have the right degree, or when you tell yourself that you can leave a person because you've invested too much in the relationship. Actually, you could apply for the job, and actually, you could also leave the person, but you don't. So you create a life lie. And the life lies are things that you create unconsciously. When I was writing this video, I was in a co-working space, and there was a lady in front of me who was clicking nonstop with her mouth. And at some point, it was so annoying that I told myself, there's no way I can write this video here, like it's too distracting. I'm going to write the video later. But then I was like, no, that's a life lie. And I continued writing the video and I actually finished it. Spotting your own life lies is not something easy. So that's why I've put together a free PDF to help you detect your own life lies. It's the first link in the description. You just click the link, you enter your mail, and you receive the file. Now I want to talk about a point in the book that has been probably the most useful tool for me, and that is the separation of tasks. So let's take an example. Let's take the example of Greg. Greg is a young man that wants to become a musician, but his parents want him to become a doctor. That's a pretty classic scenario. Now, the problem is that Greg really wants to be a musician. Like, that has been his dream ever since he was a kid. But at the same time, he doesn't want to make his parents disappointed. So what Adler says in this situation is that you have to make the separation of tasks. Greg's task is to follow his own path. That's not his parents'. And his parents' task is to deal with their emotion and their disappointment. That's not Greg's task. So Adler says, don't let other people make decisions for you. Why is it so hard though? It's because you're not only fearing disagreement, but you're also craving approval. And that need for recognition is a trap because it strips you of your freedom. It's a bit like an artist that ditches their own style just to sell more. They end up losing their originality. Maybe you accept every invitation from your friends because you don't want to let them down. But by doing so, you're actually managing their emotions, not yours. Remember, your job is to follow your own path. You're not responsible for how others feel. Adler says, if you want to be truly free, there is just one way. You have to have the courage to be disliked. Hence the title of the book. Chloe is 25. Every day she tells herself, I need to become a star first, and then I'll be happy. A lot of us think this way. We believe we need to be special before we can be happy. But here is the problem. That's not realistic. If Chloe doesn't become a star, she'll be spending her entire life waiting for happiness. And if she does become a star, you can be sure she'll find other problems afterwards. Like, oh, now I have to deal with the paparazzi. Once I get rid of the paparazzi, I'll be happy. Adler says that's just another life lie. It's something that you create to avoid living in the present moment. His solution? Accept your normality. Stop chasing exceptional. Accept being ordinary and you'll finally be able to enjoy the present. The book ends with what Adler considers the greatest life lie of all times, and that is, I am not ready yet. And I just found it so powerful. I feel like it's a very common life lie, especially among people who tend to procrastinate a lot, and I'm definitely one of them. I feel like it's something that I've told myself so many times and that I use as an excuse all the time. I just wanted to share with you guys some points that I found interesting and powerful from the book. I just feel like it's a book where you can find a lot of information that you can apply to your life. So that's interesting. For me, it's definitely the separation of tasks that was the most helpful. But let me know in the comments what you think the most useful point was. Was it the questioning of traumas? Was it the separation of tasks? Or was it the acceptation of your normality? And if you don't agree with some of the points that I developed, I understand that Adlerian psychology is a very extreme one. Just let me know in the comments why you don't agree with them.